Hello there guys, welcome back to Blues Fans TV for finally another video on this channel by me. I know it's been a little while, I do apologise, but I do hope all of you guys are staying well and staying safe. That would of course be brilliant. But what are we talking about today? What are we talking about today? Of course, it is a little bit slow at the moment. It's the season of uncertainty, as I like to call it. You know, we don't know when the Premier League is coming back. We don't know what's happening. All of us are a bit bored or, you know, just stuck at home and stuck with their own problems and that. So, you know, let's just talk about the little news that is coming out. Because on Thursday, initially, the Premier League, well, I guess it was leaked to some extent, the plans to restart/resume the Premier League with this whole situation that we're all currently in, was, like I said, kind of leaked, kind of released, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, I'm going to touch on that. Then there was a meeting between all the 20 Premier League clubs and Premier League officials and stuff yesterday, a Skype call basically, which also was very interesting. And there was some, you know, reports about that coming out. And then just generally my feelings on the whole situation, because, you know, some of this is very, very interesting. So what came out on Thursday basically is the plan how to get back to playing football. Now, the idea was from June 8th, that, you know, the Premier League would resume. When exactly the first games would take place, whether that would then be midweek or not, was not 100% clear. But what was clear is that on May 11th, so not too far from now, roughly 2 weeks at the time, or well, not quite, but you get the point. Training in small groups was meant to start. You know, this is all, of course, only proposals and all subject to, you know, the government agreeing on it, which might happen next Thursday on May 7th, when, you know, the government, you know, might, I guess, reduce the restrictions. But basically, you know, the players were meant to return to training in small groups on May 11th, with testing to every single player and every single part of staff on the weekend before that. And then on May 18th, return to full training, to full training. So then to have 3 weeks of preparation time before the Premier League would ideally restart around June 8th, probably June 12th, 13th, around that period of time. So that was kind of the time. It was also proposed that it would all take place at neutral venues. Meaning no one will play at the home games, you know, of course, no fans, obviously, but it would all be at neutral grounds. You know, there have been different kind of reports, some reports saying 10 Premier League venues would be used, others saying 8 of them, you know, 2 at the South Coast, Brighton and Southampton, then 2 in London with West Ham and Arsenal, 2 in the middle, I think, Aston Villa and some other team, pardon me, I did forget now, and then more in the north, the 2 Manchester stadiums. But no team would be allowed to play at their own ground. So, for example, even though Arsenal and West Ham stadiums are used, Arsenal wouldn't be allowed to play any games at the Emirates. You know, some clubs apparently, according to reports, are not a fan of that. They, you know, don't want to do that. They aren't willing to do that, whether they have fans there or not. They want to play at their own ground. Of course, especially the smaller clubs, you know, fighting relegation are, you know, probably much more of a fan of that, because, you know, they're used to the pitch size and everything. So it gives them a small advantage, I guess, to some extent. And it has also been reported that, you know, some clubs are in favour of all of this happening. Some clubs are not so much in favour of it, but they all have their different reasons why they have their certain opinions. Of course, you know, when the whole situation started, you know, for example, the West Ham, or one of the West Ham executives was like, yeah, we need to stop it. And everyone was like, well, that's just for self-interest because they're in a relegation zone. But apparently this is now more clubs, also clubs that wouldn't necessarily be negatively affected by this, well, by the season continuing. You know, that they actually want the season to be void. This doesn't seem to be the case. Of course, in France, the league has been, well, not void, but completed and has been terminated. But as the, you know, the sporting law in France, you know, dictates, the Ligue, you know, has found a champion, has found a top 4, has found whoever goes to Europe, who has found relegated teams as well. And the same goes for Ligue 2, of course, the second division in France as well. But the difference here is that this wasn't necessarily a decision taken by the league for, you know, PSG to be crowned champions, etc. But this is more, the law there suggests that if the league is terminated for whatever reason, the current league standings would dictate the champion, the relegated teams, etc. So that is the case there. That is not the case in any other league in Europe or in any of the top leagues anyways. Of course, other leagues have been terminated as well. For example, in the Netherlands, the Eredivisie has been terminated, but they have not found a champion. In Belgium, a different league system, but they have, you know, terminated the league and have found a champion, but they only have 1 game to go of the, you know, the initial kind of stage of their league. They have a kind of a playoff system after, but I guess it's much easier to scrap that because it's much fairer once at least everyone has played everyone. the equal amount of time, so that makes it, of course, much easier for them. There's, of course, many legal issues now in France, now in Holland, some in the Netherlands, pardon me, because some clubs are not happy with this, and some clubs are happy with this. So especially the relegated teams in France are, of course, fuming, especially because one of them, I forgot which one of the teams it was, but they're just 3 points off. And in France, they have 10 games to play still. I mean, that's 30 points to play for, and you only have you're only 3 points adrift from safety, I guess. So obviously, you're not going to be particularly happy. But like I said, there was a meeting between all the 20 Premier League clubs and the Premier League officials yesterday, a Skype call, and again, similar things were just stated. Some are happy with it, some are less so happy with it, some are okay to play at neutral venues. There's also the question: do Premier League clubs get a vote? Do they get a vote if it even is okay to play at neutral venues, or can the governing body of the Premier League kind of overrule all the clubs and say this is what's happening, basically? And then there's, of course, also the question about the players. Some players might not be willing to put themselves and their families at risk. It is an inevitability. Not sure if I got that word out right, but you know what I'm trying to say. That there will be positive tests. There is also the statement that players and staff will be tested at least twice a week, possibly every other day. So that requires a lot of testing kits and a lot of resources. Roughly £4 million for the Premier League to make sure all of that works out. Around 40,000 tests is the number that is talked about. There's also the question to make sure that this doesn't take away from testing opportunities for the frontline workers of the NHS, for example. Of course, that is very important. Frank Lampard said that today himself as well, that, that has to take priority, of course, over football, as well as public health, of course. Some players might not want to do that. What if one of your, people that you live with, one of your family, like, for example, just recovered from cancer, or, has any other, illnesses that they have to live with, and, makes them more vulnerable to the whole situation that is going on in the world right now. Still not meant to say this word on YouTube, by the way. That's why I'm trying to talk around it, but you obviously know what I'm talking about. And so, can you force these players to play them? What do you do if the majority of the players want to play, but a few don't? Do you then call up the academy players? And for example, in Germany, they've been in this small group training for a little while longer already, and will try to resume the Bundesliga sooner. But people in the club, as FC Köln or Cologne, as far as I'm aware, it's one physician and 2 players, have tested positive again. So what do you do with those now? They're currently unsure. Those 3 people will go into a 2-week quarantine. But what do we do if that happens in the Premier League? Especially, what if it happens to too many people? Like, do you know what I mean? In theory, in a confined space with, all training together and everything, once someone catches it, there's a large possibility that multiple others get it. And what if 10 players, for example, are tested positive? Can you even continue playing? Or do we need to scrap everything again? So it is a very, very difficult situation, but this is, like I said, the proposed plan so far. Training in small groups on May 11th, full training on May 18th, and then possibly restarting or resuming the Premier League on June 9th. Like I said, who knows what's going to happen. Of course, like I said at the beginning already, this is all subject to government, approval of the whole situation. This might not happen. The Premier League can do whatever they want, but they do seem very, reluctant to call the season void, to terminate the season in whichever way. Because, of course, there's big money involved. The clubs would have to pay back to the TV broadcasters around £750 million as to the games that aren't played. I mean, there's 92 games remaining, and it's also a difficult situation. How do we even get this done? So the Premier League do want to, most of the clubs do want to. What the managers, staff, players do is a very different question, and that will be, this is certainly not as easy as some of the reports make it sound now. Oh, the Premier League decided this. Well, if half of the staff and players don't want to do this because they don't want to put themselves, their families, and whoever else at risk, well, then how are you going to do it? If like everyone's going to turn up with 8 players, well, you can't exactly play football, can you now? So, it is very difficult, and we will have to see what happens from now on. Personally, I don't know. I think we have to see how the situation evolves. What I would be interested in what is the latest date they would be happy to resume the Premier League. Because if you do it in like late June or even July, and then kind of basically go straight into the next season, then I'm sure this would somehow be possible. But if it's now soon, especially with the situation that England is in, I don't think this is the best shout. But, in working together, the government and the Premier League, I'm sure they will find the best or a good solution at least. But yeah, I'm going to leave it here. Leave me all of your thoughts on the whole situation down in the comments section below. Of course, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Blues Fans TV. We're still on the road to 100,000 subscribers, so every new subscriber counts. We'd massively appreciate it. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it. You know, if you hope for the Premier League to resume, no, don't drop a like for that. Just drop a like, please. Just do it, please. Thank you. But yeah, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you guys for watching. Really do appreciate all of you guys that have tuned in. Up the shelves, and I'll see you when I see you.